I'm Dave,
I'm Ted.
and we are
Nerdarchy. How you guys doing today?
So we're starting a new series here. We want to talk to you guys about Game Master tips, and more specifically, we're going to talk about player and Dungeon Master or Game Master expectations. So we've recently started a new game, and the DM had certain expectations, and the players had certain expectations, and they weren't really lining up because they weren't really explained really well ahead of time. And it's based off a specific campaign and a specific world. So in the DM's mind, well, if you know the world, you know how it should go and what the campaign is going to look like.
So the DM GM, whatever you prefer to call it, says, "All right, guys, I'm gonna run a game. What are you guys interested in?" And he gave us a couple options, and the clear winner was Dark Sun. And if you guys aren't familiar with it, look it up. It's a really interesting world, but it's a world where metal is obnoxiously rare. You can't get steel, because steel is like a mythical ingredient. Mithril, adamantium, platinum just don't exist. Gold and silver, when found, tend to be in small quantities, so it's more like jewelry that's worn by the obnoxiously wealthy. So if you want to get something made of metal, you're typically getting something iron. And anything that's not iron suffers minuses. So when he gives us the idea that we're doing Dark Sun, he gives us our starting money, and it says iron costs 10 times whatever's in the book. And it happened to fall that we had enough money to be able to afford it. Because if a standard longsword is 50 gold, it's only 150 to get an iron longsword, and therefore we don't have the minuses. So as opposed to being able to build up to the point where a typical adventure would be finding that +1 weapon, we would be finding that metal item. Well, he didn't want us starting off with metal, but by saying you can get it, but it's 10 times the cost, we assumed we could get it. So he expects that we're going to sit there and make characters, and no one's going to have anything metal till he talks to half the players, and everybody's got metal items on their character sheet.
Not only do they have metal items, but they have a lot of metal items. So, I got where he was coming from with the game he was trying to run. And the problem is just, from the get-go, it just wasn't conveyed, well enough for us to go, oh, okay, this is kind of what we're supposed to do.
So for a player, for a DM, you need to make sure that the pathways of communication are open so that everyone's on the same page. So if you're going to do a Dark Sun game and you don't want characters to have metal, don't say metal can be bought. Just say, look, since you're doing Dark Sun, let's hold back. And typically when a character is going to find their first magic item, it's like a woohoo, I finally got that. And he wants to use metal as that, since magic items tend to be more rare. So you're starting off at that, low point with an actual goal, rather than starting off up here where you've already got what the DM sees as that first goal.
And that's just one example. Another example is I tried something new, something I've never done, which is a play-by-post game that we were doing online on Facebook. And I was enjoying the game, and it was decent. But one of the things that the game master had decided was he was going to do all the dice rolling. We would just tell him what we're doing, give him copies of our character sheets, and he would roll the dice and then tell us what happens, which I was fine with. But some of the other players weren't. They, you could tell by some of the comments they were making is they were upset about the fact that they weren't rolling the dice, and the thing is, if that game master would have said, hey, this is the specific game I'm trying to run, then someone who wants to roll the dice probably wouldn't opt in to play that game. So, when you have the right expectations from the players and from the dungeon master or game master, if you prefer, it's going to make for a better game. And this is something I'm trying to be more conscious about when I start a new campaign, when I start a new game. This is the game I want to run. Are you guys interested in playing it? Because if you throw together a game that no one really wants to play, there's no point. So you kind of have to mesh everything up. So that's our game mastering tips for today. And until next time, Dave,
Ted, have a
we're
good one.
Nerdarchy.